The Art of Deception. Chapter 1, The Devil's Smile. In the grand halls of the Veridan estate, opulence dripped from every corner, gilded frames, velvet drapes, and chandeliers shimmering with the light of 100 candles. The Veridans were a family whispered about in dark alleys and murmured across gilded ballrooms. A family of crooks, cheats, and manipulators, at least, that's what the world believed. Elian Veridan, the eldest son and the family's enigmatic head, was the most feared of them all. Known for his silver tongue and the uncanny ability to twist fortune itself, he was a man who made enemies disappear and debts dissolve. To his siblings, mischievous Adrian, cunning Helena, and soft-spoken Mira, Elian was a guiding hand, a mentor who led them into risky ventures that paid off handsomely. To their doting parents, he was a prodigy, a visionary. What they didn't know was that Elian had lived this life before. Reborn from a past filled with betrayal and ruin, Elian knew that kindness was a commodity too costly to afford. He understood greed, ambition, and the lust for power, traits he exploited mercilessly. To his siblings, it was all a thrilling game. Fortune favors the bold, he would say. They never questioned the strokes of luck or the business deals that flourished despite impossible odds. Adrian's smuggling operations were always perfectly timed, Helena's blackmail schemes always untraceable, and Myra's charitable investments always suspiciously lucrative. It was Elian who orchestrated it all, using the memories of a life where he was deceived and destroyed. This time, he would be the deceiver. Yet, beneath the cunning and deception, the Veridans were a family that protected their own. They dealt harshly with slavers, dismantled corrupt merchant guilds, and redistributed wealth, always under the guise of greed. Their enemies cursed them, but the common folk spoke of shadowy benefactors who kept justice in check. Elian smirked often at his family's confusion. Just good fortune, he'd say, watching their expressions flicker with uncertainty. He would rather have them think him a villain than know the truth. He was preparing them for a storm. Enemies were closing in, shadows from his past life, betrayers who had killed him once before. Elian's rebirth had gifted him power, but his true strength lay in the family he now shaped. As whispers of a rival syndicate's wrath loomed closer, Elian knew one thing. He was done being a pawn. This time, the game would end on his terms. Being reborn younger was the greatest advantage Elian could have asked for. 15 years earlier, with a body untainted by bitterness and a mind sharpened by the cruel lessons of the past, he began laying the foundations of his plans. In his previous life, the Veridan family's wealth had drawn vultures disguised as allies, sycophants, traitors, and shadowy rivals. One by one, his parents, siblings, and finally Elian himself had been killed in seemingly unrelated incidents, accidents, sudden illness, poison, and betrayal. The memory of his own brutal end fueled his resolve. He needed to create a reputation, a terrifying one. To the world, Elian was a scoundrel, a thug who plundered and seized without effort, a villain who relied on brute force. The young heir who took what he wanted, never bothering to earn it. An image that drew scorn and disdain, but no true fear. After all, a fool was never a threat. The real Elian, however, was far more dangerous. He spent his youth mastering every skill, combat, tactics, poisons, manipulation, turning into a hidden monster. Every enemy who whispered of his family's weakness soon vanished. Every schemer who tried to infiltrate the Veridan ranks met an unfortunate end. The world trembled at the name of a shadowy demon who punished the wicked, but none knew it was Elian. Within the family, he played the part of the lazy scion who chased women and squandered money. A black sheep who never deserved his wealth. His siblings chided him, his parents lamented his reckless ways, but they adored him still. It was his shield, his cover. Every move, every deceit, every action was meant to draw out the snakes hiding among the grass. He needed them to strike first so he could cut off their heads. As whispers of the mysterious avenger grew, Elian's reputation as a fool only deepened. The game had begun, and those who thought the Veridan family weak were about to learn just how terrifying a reborn devil could be. Elian lounged in his private study, a wine glass twirling between his fingers. The scent of aged whiskey hung in the air, though he never drank. Across the room, Adrian leaned against the mantel, a mischievous smirk tugging at his lips. A letter came from Lord Fairbanks. The old fool is looking for an investment to cover up some losses. Helena scoffed, flicking through papers. Fairbanks? The one caught embezzling from his own estate? Elian's grin was a serpent's smile. Precisely. The kind of man who thinks himself clever, but gambles away his wealth and reputation. He's the perfect prey. The door creaked open, and Mira entered, eyes wide. Elian, Duke Havisham and Baron Renwick have requested an audience. They're desperate for funding, whispering about grand ventures. Elian chuckled. Let them beg. Offer them generous terms, on paper. By the time they realize the loopholes, their debts will bleed them dry. Adrian's brow furrowed. Isn't this fraud? Helena laughed, sharp and cruel. It's business. They're scoundrels. If we don't ruin them, someone worse will. Elian's gaze hardened. We're not saints. But we're not monsters either. Those who profit from others' ruin will find themselves preyed upon. Fairbanks, Havisham, Renwick, they steal under the guise of wealth and status. I'll strip them bare and make sure their ill-gotten gains find better hands. Elian stood at the balcony of the Veridan estate, the sprawling city of Astoria glittering beneath the fading twilight. The wind tousled his dark hair as he watched flickering lanterns illuminate the busy streets. It was a city on the brink of an era where technology and magic intertwined, and power shifted to those who adapted. In his past life, Elian had watched empires rise and crumble under the weight of innovation. He would not make the same mistake twice. He glanced over his shoulder as Adrian and Helena entered, each wearing a different expression, Adrian with a glimmer of mischief, Helena with icy calculation. Mira followed, her gentle eyes observing her siblings. Investment opportunities, Adrian announced, waving a stack of letters. The northern merchants are in a frenzy about a new metal, frost steel. Stronger than iron, lighter than mithril. Everyone wants a piece. Helena arched an eyebrow. Lord Karst and Baron Ruggin are also keen on partnering, but I doubt it's just for trade. They're after leverage. Elian smirked. The kind of leverage we don't let others hold. Mira frowned. You're planning something, aren't you, Elian? He raised his glass, swirling the amber liquid inside. Always, dear sister. In his past life, for years from now, Astoria had been engulfed in chaos. The Republic government had passed the Grand Integration Act, mandating all businesses to adapt to the rapid advancements in magitech. Those who failed to comply were devoured by competition. Families like the Veridans had lost everything, while tech giants seized control. It had been the beginning of the end for old powers. This time, Elian would make sure the Veridan family stood atop that new world order. I'm investing in technology, he declared, the words a promise. Frost steel may sound lucrative now, but it's a dead end. The future lies in magitech, automated defenses, arcane networks, and constructs. We'll prepare for the coming storm. Adrian laughed. And bankrupt every fool chasing useless metals? Exactly, Elian confirmed. Let them chase smoke. We'll seize the real prize. Helena crossed her arms. What's the plan? Elian leaned back against the railing, a grin playing at his lips. There was a shield system in my past life. The most advanced defense technology ever created. It cost billions to produce, and only one company ever succeeded, Wormgate Industries. The project failed when their chief hacker betrayed them and sold the secrets. By the time the shield went public, competitors had stolen the designs, and Wormgate crumbled. Adrian scoffed. You want us to fund a doomed project? No, Elian corrected. I want us to own it. I was one of the system's creators in my past life. I'll rebuild it, stronger, unbreakable. And we'll patent it before anyone else even thinks of it. Myra's eyes widened. That's brilliant. Helena's lips curled into a smirk. You really are a devil, Elian. Elian chuckled. A devil with foresight. Over the next few weeks, Elian poured wealth into research and development. Secretly, he began crafting the shield system, Aegis. A barrier capable of withstanding physical and magical assaults, a system of interconnected runes and magitech channels. He recruited engineers and scholars, feeding them designs from the future disguised as visions and theories. The family's investments diversified: constructs for security, devices for communication, and the first prototypes of artificial intelligence. Elian's vision was coming to life. But word spread quickly in Astoria's underworld. The Veridan family was rising, and whispers of their newfound wealth drew the attention of those who had ruined them once before. A knock echoed through the study one stormy evening. Elian looked up as a servant entered, bowing low. "My lord, a messenger has arrived." An invitation from Lord Selim Dreyst. Elian's eyes narrowed. The Dreyst family, the wolves who had led the charge against the Veridans in his past life. They had instigated the betrayal, feeding lies to allies and twisting the law to ruin his family. "Accept it," Elian said, a slow smile creeping onto his face. "Let's see what the snake wants." The Dreyst estate was a fortress masquerading as a palace, towers of black stone, banners of crimson and gold. Elian strolled through the gilded hallways, Adrian and Helena flanking him like loyal shadows. Servants whispered and cast nervous glances. Lord Selim Dreyst awaited them in a grand hall, a silver-haired man with eyes like ice and a smile that never reached them. Beside him stood his son, Vesper, an arrogant nobleman with a perpetual sneer. "Elian Veridan," Lord Selim drawled. "Your family's rise has been intriguing." Elian clasped his hands behind his back, feigning politeness. "The Veridans have always known how to thrive, even in trying times." Selim's smile was thin. "Indeed. Which is why I offer a partnership. A merger of sorts." Adrian stifled a laugh, and Helena smirked. Elian tilted his head. "A merger? Your ventures are impressive, but a storm is coming," Selim warned. "The government's new laws will dismantle old houses and rewrite power. Alone, you will struggle." "And with you?" Elian asked. "We could rule Astoria," Selim promised. "The Dreyst name commands respect, and you have wealth and innovation. We'd be unstoppable." Elian chuckled. "You speak of storms as if you control the weather." Vesper bristled. "Watch your tone, whelp." Helena leaned closer, eyes gleaming. "Careful. You might choke on your own arrogance." Selim raised a hand. "Enough. Consider this, Elian, reject me, and you'll be swallowed by the new order." Elian smirked, a devil's grin. "I don't need you, Selim. The Veridans don't make deals with wolves." He turned on his heel, leaving the Dreysts sputtering in anger. As they strode out, Adrian grinned. "You sure know how to make enemies." "I only keep those worth fighting," Elian replied. Back at the estate, Elian gathered his family. "The Dreysts are making moves. We'll need to hit them first." Helena's eyes glowed. "How ruthless are we being?" Elian's expression was cold. "Ruthless enough to remind them of who we are." Adrian, leak news of Vesper's debt-ridden ventures. Helena, undermine their trade routes. Mira, find every charity and make donations in their name, drawing scrutiny. Mira hesitated. "Won't that make them look generous?" Elian grinned. "Not when we reveal it was stolen wealth." He leaned back. "We'll show them what happens when you try to threaten a devil." Elian's plans unfolded like clockwork. The Dreysts' reputation crumbled as scandals erupted. Debts, theft, and embezzlement charges poured in, stripping them of power. Whispers of a shadowy avenger spread, and the name Elian Veridan carried a new weight, an enigmatic devil who punished the wicked. But the game was far from over. Elian's enemies were many, and the storm of technology and power was only beginning. The devil's smile never wavered, for he had only just begun. This time, he would win. No mercy. The morning broke with a haunting chill, the sun a sliver of pale light peeking over the horizon. Elian's eyes snapped open, not to the soft rays filtering through velvet drapes, but to the blaring urgency of warning sirens and flashing crimson lights. A network of screens embedded into the walls of his private chambers flared to life, an advanced surveillance system he had installed years ago. The image on the screen sent a cold shiver down his spine. The broadcast was impossible, an event that should not have happened for another 4 years. A news anchor, pale and trembling, recited words that echoed Elian's worst fears. The president declares a state of emergency as the global network collapses. Hackers have hijacked the central system, and mass blackouts have spread across the continent. Reports confirm that the advanced security grid, rumored to be the work of the world's top engineers, has been breached. All those involved in its development are now deceased. Authorities are seeking experts to restore control, but the identity of the system's architect remains unknown. Elian's breath hitched. The system, his system. The one he had built from the shadows to prevent exactly this outcome. A project he never intended to make public until the time was right. The very project he had avoided to protect his family. Now, the nightmare had come early. The butterfly effect. A ripple from his actions in this life had altered the course of fate. He was ahead of schedule, but so were his enemies. He cursed under his breath and activated the emergency protocols, locking down the estate and masking it under the illusion of an overgrown ruin, an old trick woven from technology and misdirection. Anyone who dared approach would see only crumbling walls and twisted vines, a forgotten place in the wilderness. Elian ran a hand through his hair, the cold sweat of dread cooling as his focus sharpened. This was no accident. Someone had pushed the timeline forward, and whoever it was, they needed to be dealt with swiftly. But first, his family. He had spent years amassing wealth, resources, and influence to prepare for this very day. A palace within a palace, a fortress disguised as a forgotten ruin. A 500-acre estate far from prying eyes, surrounded by forests and a shimmering lake. Elian had drawn plans for a self-sufficient sanctuary, a haven against the madness to come. The heart of it was a hidden estate built using technology that wouldn't be invented for another 7 years. But Elian had always been ahead of his time. With a swipe of his hand, holographic blueprints sprang to life, displaying the subterranean complex beneath the estate, fortified walls, cloaked surveillance, and a neural network designed to interface directly with his mind. It was unfinished but functional enough for now. The estate was camouflaged by holographic projections, making it appear as a natural woodland glade to any passerby. The system, when complete, would make him a ghost, untouchable. But first, he needed to ensure his family's safety. He had no illusions about their nature, ambitious, cunning, and unpredictable, but they were his, bound by blood and loyalty. He would need their help to secure the estate. And they would need his protection when the storm truly broke. Elian's eyes hardened as he watched the flickering broadcast. The world had just declared war on itself. The president would hunt for the architect of the system, desperate to restore control and eliminate loose ends. The first strike had come early. Now it was time to respond. Elian stood, already planning a dozen steps ahead. He had 7 years' worth of knowledge to bridge the gap, but he was a gambler, and the odds had never been in his favor. A devil's grin spread across his lips. Then let's make this interesting. Elian stood in his private study, the crisp parchment of the presidential invitation crumpled in his clenched fist. The seal of the Republic gleamed mockingly, a symbol of power and death wrapped in one. He stared at the neatly inked words, inviting him, a 15-year-old strategist, to help choose those worthy of building the shield system, an invitation laced with false honor. In his previous life, the creators of that very system had been slaughtered, their knowledge deemed too dangerous to be left unchecked. The president had ensured their deaths, maintaining a monopoly on the world's strongest defense. "This is a trap," he muttered under his breath. Adrian burst in, eyes bright with excitement. "Elian! Did you see? The president himself invited you. You've done it. The Veridan name will reach new heights." Helena entered next, her eyes glimmering with ambition. "Our family will be untouchable. We'll be rubbing shoulders with the elite." Mira followed, a hesitant smile on her lips. It's an honor, Elian. You should go. Elian sighed, raking a hand through his hair. He'd made himself indispensable, too indispensable. A 15-year-old prodigy seen as a brilliant strategist, but no one knew the true extent of his talents. If he accepted, he'd be under the government's thumb, watched, and eventually silenced. If he refused, he'd draw suspicion. But there was a third option, a move that could serve two purposes. No, he said firmly. I'm not going. Adrian blinked. What? Are you mad? This is the chance of a lifetime. Elian's lips curled into a lazy smile. If I go, I'll be out of my depth. The president doesn't need a child, he needs seasoned experts. He snatched a quill, dipped it in ink, and began writing. I'll recommend someone better suited. We'll gain the president's favor without exposing ourselves. Helena crossed her arms. And who exactly is more suited than you? Elian grinned. A man who boasts of greatness but has achieved nothing, a greedy snake named Velos Blackwood. He's a leech who feeds off others' efforts and manipulates anyone who crosses his path. I'll list a few other names too, just to make it convincing. Myra's brows knitted together. Isn't that dangerous? What if the president uses Velos to build the system? Elian's smirk widened. He won't get far. Velos has enemies, powerful ones. By the time the president realizes his mistake, Velos will be dead. One less problem for us. Adrian laughed, shaking his head. You're a devil. Elian sealed the letter, dripping wax onto the paper and stamping it with the Veridan crest. Just a devil who knows how to hunt monsters.